Tommy Curran, thanks for joining us here on a Friday. Sorry to interrupt your Masters viewing.
No problem at all. I just came off the course myself. It was frigid.
It was frigid. Well, that, to make a very professional transition, feels like the relationship between, wait for it,
nice,
Mac Jones and Bill Belichick. Frigid. Ooh. How would you describe things at this point in time, Tom?
I think wary. I think that Mac probably at this point is wary of just how much faith the Patriots are placing in him going forward. And it's a huge year for him, as we've all reported on, and you guys have reported on as well. 2023 is going to be a massive season for him in terms of, do the Patriots want to, next year in May, pick up his 50-year option, or do they want to just play it out like the Giants did with Daniel Jones? But there is a huge proving ground in which Mac Jones finds himself in right now, because the team is certainly evaluating whether or not he is who they thought he was. Now, why that is traces back to, in my estimation, the decisions made with the coaching staff, and he's being held liable less for the play and more for the leadership and how well he, quote unquote, took the coaching in 2022.
Well, if that's part of the reason why he's maybe getting frosted a little bit by Bill Belichick, I wonder, and I hate to bring his name up so early in the interview here, Tommy, but there's been some talk about this recently. Bailey Zappi, according to some of the coaches, not a big difference between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, according to them, was reported this week. I think if that's true, what you're saying, could it be that Bailey Zappi's taking to the coaching is maybe what made them more sour on Mac Jones?
1 billion%. And I think Albert Breer has reported that many times.
Breer, yeah.
That there's not a great athletic difference between the two. Mac's a better athlete. Mac is sharper than Bailey Zappi, but Bailey Zappi's no dummy. And the difference in 2022 between the two was mitigated by the fact that Bailey Zappi, quote, took the coaching. And Albert has reported that that's how the coaching staff felt. So there was a feeling among the offensive coaching staff, or Bill, or all of them, that, well, if Mac listened to us, then we would have won games with him as opposed to with Bailey when we went out and beat Detroit, who couldn't get out of its own way and lost 29-0, or Cleveland, Jacoby Brissett was throwing picks, or he kept them in the game against Green Bay, or they got their asses handed to them against Chicago. I mean, there's this notion that, well, if Mac just listened to us, it would have been different. Instead, he didn't believe in anything we were saying, and look what happened. And I think that that's dubious.
So we've kind of discussed this in the past. I'm more of a believer in that than maybe you are, but we're going to see how that goes this season with better coaching for sure. With Bill O'Brien here, correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth. I was listening to the Patriots Talk podcast last night, a very fine podcast that you and Phil Perry did, where you were running through all the different scenarios here on this story. Did you say Bill is out on Mac Jones? That's accurate, right?
Out might be overstating it. I would say he's continuing. He's re-entered an evaluation stage that I don't think that he was necessarily in 2021.
Okay, so I guess here's how I would ask it to you, because there's a lot of quibbling about semantics, whether Florio had the shopping part of it right. Was he shopping Mac Jones, or can Mac Jones just be had for the right price? I tend to be more in that second camp, where if somebody meets Bill's asking price, I think he'd listen. Who do you think would be most interested in Mac Jones were he to be available?
I want to address the first part.
Yep.
Of what you said.
Sure.
Because I 1,000,000% agree. This notion that, okay, was it shopping? Was it asking around? Was it just general conversations about what would it take if you wanted to have this player? Was it, we're not so sure about this kid, what do you think? Either way, there are conversations that are going on within the Patriots organization that question whether or not Mac Jones is a guy they want to tether themselves to. What will it take? I would imagine if you're going to present to Robert Kraft the notion of moving on from Mac Jones, you have to also explain why the financial ramifications make sense. You have a guy on a $2.5 million salary with a $4 million cap hit, basically each of the next 2 years. Why would it make sense to move away from him when he showed great capability? You might differ on that. Great. In his rookie year, why would you adjourn yourself from that when the problem is everybody but seemingly the people in the Patriots organization unanimously agree he was put in not just a tough situation, a negative situation. So no matter who might be out there, whether it be the Raiders, and I can't imagine that here in April, with OTAs about to start in 2 weeks, and the players are very cognizant of this too, that this is coming down now as they're about to start. Why would the Patriots move away from the table on him now? I think that the notion of moving on from him, if he was shocked, if we want to use that word, the shopping is done. The store is closed. Although there's always a draft. I say with that caveat too. But I can't imagine they're moving on from him at this juncture.
Okay, I just want to drill down on something. You mentioned that, and it's kind of been phrased by people pushing back on the Florio report, that, well, the Patriots listen on everybody. Everybody listens on every name at this point in the calendar season, that they wouldn't be doing their jobs if they weren't listening. What's your understanding? And I understand he's in a different stratosphere than Mac Jones, but what's your understanding on how often they were listening on Tom Brady over the years?
I mean, they basically, Belichick laughed at the 49ers when they brought up Brady in 2017. That was what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan basically reported prior to the draft when they inquired about Garoppolo. And then, later it might have been different, but to me, it's far different. They're not listening to offers for the greatest quarterback of all time, who at that point in 2016 and 17 was coming off MVP level season in 16 and goes on to win the MVP in 17. So it's far different. I mean, could Mac Jones be had? I mean, he's of average arm strength. He is a capable player who could, with the right circumstances around him, lead you to playoff appearances. And if things fall right, maybe an AFC championship game, and then God knows what could happen in those games. But he's not a layup to get you to the playoffs every year, the way a tier of quarterbacks, including, Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady would be. So they'll entertain. I would imagine they would entertain anything, but who wants to marry up to Mac Jones right now when the Patriots are, after 2 seasons, saying, well, I don't know about this guy?
Tom, this question's a little nebulous, but now that there's 2 months of separation and the dust kind of settling on last year and the whole Patricia and Judge experiment, I wonder if ownership has the same kind of confidence in Bill, because coming off of that season and the way that it all went, this offseason hasn't exactly gone very smoothly either. And maybe that's, media creations and whatever else, the babies are all complaining about. But it does sort of seem like there's still a lot of drama swirling around Bill Belichick. And, after last year and that whole thing, I just sort of wonder, like, where do they sort of sit with him? Or is that needle not moving at all?
I look at 2022 when we were at the owners' meetings and Robert Kraft said, look, we expect to compete for championships now. It's been 3 years without a playoff win. We want that to end. It didn't end. Not only did it not end, but Bill put in place a surrounding cast for Mac Jones to put him at a disadvantage, which Robert Kraft again mentioned last year. He didn't see the logic behind it, but Bill oftentimes has ideas that don't follow straight line logic, and it works out. Well, it didn't work out. So going into this year, I think they've had, in my estimation, I'm sure that you differ definitely, Adam, and I'm not sure, Christian.
I do.
I think they've had a good offseason. I think hiring Bill O'Brien is going to be a retro rocket to the offense, and I think Mac Jones is going to have a season that puts all this conversation on such a block of ice that we're going to laugh at it in 7 or 8 months. But all that said, I think that Bill has more to prove than Mac Jones in some ways.
I'd say that's fair. I mean, look, I think Bill has a lot to prove this offseason. I enjoyed, by the way, and you kind of just, I don't want to say danced around it, but almost touched on it there, the idea that, like, we're all going to look back and laugh. Bill's going to, like, mock this idea, right, that Mac was ever... If Mac is good, and I know you and Phil were kind of joking about this last night, or whenever you recorded the podcast, I was watching it last night. And, yeah, just the idea that Bill's going to use it to, what a fake news, what a funny idea that we ever shopped Mac Jones, when in reality he knows damn well he did.
I look back at his letter to Donald Trump in November of 2020 that Trump read when it alluded to, you've run such a spectacular campaign with a negative and slanted media against you. That really cuts to, I think, a lot of what Bill would regard as the media now. I'm sure that he has looked at these reports this week and said, this is nothing. They're making something out of nothing, and they're looking for anything, when it's ascribing to the media a demon that he needs to later rub our noses in it, or the fans' noses in it, or whoever. If Mac plays great, it's because, we got Bill O'Brien and things are moving forward, but it's not all Mac, it's not all Bill, and it's not all me, and it will all be forgotten. And I truly believe that by November, it will largely be, and you can rack this if you want to, it will largely be a punchline. Rack it, Renee.
All right. Well, Tommy,
does that make you Jim Acosta, by the way?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm sorry?
Does that make you Jim Acosta in this analogy?
Peppering Trump?
I don't follow enough of the politics.
Right,
I know he's on CNN or MSNBC or something like that, but yeah, no, I can't.
All right. Well, he is Tommy Curran. We'll talk to you next week. Tom, enjoy the Masters once it gets back underway.
All right, handsome. See ya.
All right, Tom E. Curran.